an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Blackflame Chapters 19, 20, 21, and 22. In these chapters, so many things happen. This is a seriously packed bunch of chapters. I probably could have gotten away with covering Chapter 19 last episode, but I'm going to do my best and keep it moving, and I can't wait to talk about it. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Andy for commissioning this episode. So, Andy, I just want you to know how much I wanted to talk about this because today I have a tendency to get migraines. Those of you who get migraines know that they can lay you out pretty fucking well. And I had two recordings today, this one and Mistborn earlier on in the day. And unfortunately for me, in a way, both of them were incredibly packed, interesting chapters. Otherwise, I might have been like, my God, I was vomiting like all afternoon, and I still just don't have any food in my stomach. But I just couldn't not record on them. I just couldn't, either one. I couldn't skip it. I told Miles, like, give me a little extra time, but I'm going to be there. And I thought about canceling this one because after Mistborn, I was like, I think I feel a little bit better. Everything is, and then I totally like vomited and was laid out again for like hours. And I thought, maybe I should tell him that I'm just out. I couldn't do it. I couldn't bear to do it. It was just, I wanted to talk about it. I want to get on to the start of the next book too bad. So here I am. I actually do feel a little bit better by now. Comes in waves, so I'm riding this little wave right here so that I can do this. Guys, when I say so much happens, I mean, that's something that I often say during particularly packed TV episodes, book chapters, whatever. But honestly, this may take the prize for most eventful series of chapters of anything I've ever read, with so many things happening so very close together. So we have all kinds of stuff. We've got Yerin, who decides that it's finally time to break open her mentor's remnant and ascend to Highgold. We've got, we have another ascension with Lindon finally moving up, and he's in the gold area now. Although it turns out, as Orthos says, that Lowgold is barely better than Jade, in his opinion. He's like, you human beings love to break shit up into like these monumental accomplishments, but really, this is like Jade 2.0. Lowgold isn't really all that much. So it doesn't result in the kind of complete restoration of body and a total like change in the way he perceives the world. Then we have Eithan fighting Daishou. And it is probably one of the most epic fight scenes ever. Like, Eithan, I was so hopeful, you guys, that he kept as much under the vest as I thought. And it seems like he did. And he kills Daishou. And I was super, super stoked about it. Except he doesn't. And then it turns out that Daishou is still alive because he's got some box that keeps him alive just the one time, which seems super unfair. But also, I feel like that was a pretty dope surprise that we have so many wild treasures in this world that it doesn't feel like what it could have felt like, which is, oh wow, he just happened to have a thing so that he didn't die. Really? Is that what we're doing? Oh, he's still alive because, all right, fine. So many things I have watched or read even outside of for the show have pulled that kind of thing, and I have been very frustrated by it. Not here. It just feels like this is a dude who would have that kind of shit up his sleeve. Absolutely. That feels true to him as a character. This is a world. And the kind of bad luck that happens to, I was going to say good guys when they underestimate the bad guys, but honestly, I still don't really know that Eithan's a good guy. I want to think that because he seems to be an empathetic, responsible thinker, even though it doesn't look like he is on the outside. So my inclination is to say he's a good guy, but I just don't have a great sense of his motivation still on what it is he's trying to do. So I don't know if I can call him that. But he is my protagonist family, so I'm going to call him a good guy. But yeah, good guys often just feel like, all right, we fought one-on-one, I won, end of story, it's done. Because that's how Eithan, that's the danger of his thinking in this book I've found, is that he is a little bit too prepared to believe that he knows how shit works. And while he has this amazing awareness that the Aurelius family apparently possesses, it's not really like, he's still young feeling in his believing that there are rules and we follow them. And that's sort of how it worked here with the killing of Daishou as well. And on top of all of this happening, we then have Eithan finding out that Daishou isn't dead, which I really thought that was going to be some shit that was like hidden from him until at least the next book, and maybe to the end of the next book. But he finds out really, really quickly. And it's like in no uncertain terms. It's not even a like rumor. And he kind of discounts it. It comes from the Emperor, a really reliable source who has the, information in his own hand. And this is all paired with the knowledge that Eithan is using pure Madra as one of his weapons, which is part of what's so like mind-blowing in his techniques of defending himself. And then we have Lindon healing Jailong's sister. Y'all, I did not see that coming. Not even a little. I have no idea what Jailong is going to think of that. Like, because if you were going to pick anything, any Achilles heel for Jailong's determination, that's it. His sister is the one weakness for him when it comes to trying to just be goal-oriented and follow along on a path. She was the only one that managed to stop him from just going ahead and committing suicide when it came up against him and Daishou. Daishou was like, I've got your sister. And he was just stopped dead, So here's this enemy that he really he's got a bit of a complex about this. I think he would have been willing to let it go personally. It was more Gokran that really wanted this so badly. But I think he still would have had it out for Yerin at least. And now these people are responsible for the full restoration of his sister's spirit. And what does he do with that? I really if it turns out that Jailong is going to pull a Zuko and join up with our merry band and be on the side of the angels, I will love that a lot. And that's sort of a trite thing usually that I'm kind of like, well, I saw that coming. I mean, that's how I felt with Zuko, to be honest. I was like, well, it's just a matter of time because clearly he's going to wind up on our friend's side here. That. It's a trope. But Jailong is really one that I wouldn't have seen that coming at all. And it works if that is what happens. It makes sense. It's like one of the only ways that would make sense. But it hadn't even occurred to me. And I love it. Because Jailong's super interesting. So interesting. So anyway, I'm sure I'm missing yet another major plot beat. Well, all right. I just wanted to like talk about some of the major stuff right off the top because there's just so much going on here. So let's go to Yerin. And this poor girl is really struggling with coming to terms with what her remnant is. It's finally like, she's finally realizing that this remnant that she keeps sort of asking for advice is saying the same thing over and over again to her to attack. And she can't. And she's starting to realize finally, as like her own death is bearing down on her, that this isn't her master. And she like has to kind of cope with the loss of him all over again. This is something that is so heartbreaking to me. Like, it's only been in the last 5 or 6 years of my life that I've really lost anybody close to me. I lost my father only a couple of months later. Not even, actually. I think it was like a month and a half later. I lost my grandmother. And my family is large, but really, when I think of family, I think of my mom, my dad, and my grandmother. Those are the three that I was guaranteed to always be with at holidays. Other extended family wasn't around that much. So I lost 2 out of 3 within the space of 2 months and got a divorce a couple of months after that. And it was a really brutal time. And this will happen, this sort of double loss where you have lost somebody, but you're holding on to another thing. And then you lose that too. And it finally hits you that this person's really gone. And that can present in a lot of different ways. For my dad and I, it was like, I had trouble coming to terms with the fact that he was gone because he lived like away from me and I didn't see him that often until I started to have dreams about him. And then I would wake up wanting to call him, being like, God, I haven't talked to him in a while. Why haven't I called him? And then I would remember why I hadn't called him. And that happened several times. And it wasn't until that happened like the second or third time that I really felt, oh my God, he's gone. That's it. And it just with her remnant being in her, this link being so much more like concrete, it's so understandable why she'd hold on for so long. And, I was reading this sort of like unsure. I said to you guys before, I don't know if Eithan's right or not, because there's things about the way magic works in this world that not everybody seems to know. And Eithan has his assertion that she has to break open the remnant, but I'm not positive that that's true. It turns out he's right. And she finally realizes that he's right. And it's really hard for her. And what's so amazing is that she does this and Jai Long sees that she's ascending, and rather than like attack her while she's transferring into this new state, he just waits politely because there's no motivation for him to just kill her. That's not why he's here. He's here to see how he measures up against her. And if she's just down for the count because of something totally unrelated to his attack, beating her doesn't mean anything. So he just stands and waits, which so great. And we get to see some memories of the Sword Sages, because while she's breaking this remnant open, there are things happening inside of her, and she's seeing this thing. And I had thought, and we still don't really get a full explanation, but this blood madra that is sort of attached to her, I had thought was maybe something that she picked up during that scene where she's trapped between all of these swords and has to find her way out. And there's something below her that she would never reach for, but she finally does. And I don't know that isn't what happened, because this is sort of unclear when this scene happens, she may have already been a disciple of his by the time this went down. But regardless, she's a lot younger with this than I thought. And we had heard about her standing in the wreckage of her home with her dead family around her. And I had always assumed that there had been some sort of attack from an external foe, and she was left to fend for herself until the Sword Sage happened to cross her somehow and, like, rescued her. But what it sounds like is that this thing killed her family, and it's about to kill him, and she manages to stop it. He could defend himself from this weapon, the seed of a true blood shadow, with only a fraction of his Madra. He was in no danger, but she didn't know that. And she forced her body to its limit, muscles straining, blood running from the lip she was biting to keep the parasite from stretching any closer to him. Here was a girl who fought with all her body, mind, and spirit. She held on, her eyes furious and determined, resisting to the end. And the fragment of a dread god was no easy foe. What? What? So, it sounds like she's got a piece of something. It honestly, I don't know whether Suriel is considered a dread god. You know, I don't know what that means. I don't think so, but I don't know. But whatever this is it had a sort of awareness of its own previous, which is interesting. And so this memory is of him realizing that she's perfect for the sword path because she is somebody who will fight even when there is not really any fucking reason to fight. She fights because that's the only option, and there's no looking to defend herself. And I thought that was really significant. The path of the Endless Sword had no defense. Sword aura could not shield her. It could only cut. Whether she fought to escape, to kill her opponent, to protect herself, or to save someone else, she had to do so by attacking. That was the one weapon in her arsenal, the one road forward. And I just think that's really something that hadn't occurred to me. And I think that's really interesting. I like it a lot. And there's something about her being paired with Lindon that makes that, like, she's the sword, and I feel like he's the shield a little bit. He is somebody who cares about people. He always is concerned about whether other people are all right. And that's not to say he doesn't have this insane offensive attack now with the Blackflame, but that's just who he is. So, yeah, this is just... On her path, every technique was half a ruler technique, made her more powerful, gave her techniques extra heft so long as she held a sword. If she didn't have a weapon with a sharp edge, she was worth less than any other sacred artist. That's what her gold sign was for. And this is when shit comes to a head. And she goes up against Jai Long from here. And he's ready, because, again, he's a true gold now. So she's ascended to Highgold, which is all well and good, but that's still a step below him, and he really believes this will at least make her more of an opponent. But he doesn't expect what he gets, which is she is strong as fuck, and he doesn't know why. He doesn't understand how it is that she is able to launch herself into the air the way that she does. Like, this is, and when I say strong, in this world, saying that sounds like a spiritual thing, but this is a physical change. And he is just really taken aback at how much this upgrade has changed everything about how she fights. And he is It says he shouldn't feel any pressure from her attacks, but he did. He should be so much faster with his flowing starlight that she couldn't keep up, and yet she did. She shouldn't be able to threaten him except with her weapon, but that kick had nearly broken his ribs. I love that. She kicks him at one point, and they both stop and like look at each other because he flew, and she's even surprised. She's not used to this yet, you know? So finally, he's like, I gotta get out of here. I can't win. I can't let myself die here. I can't win. So I need to just run. And I just really, it's a little bit embarrassing. It's a little bit embarrassing. Like, I just feel for him a tiny bit because he was so excited to see going up against her how much he had improved, and to find out that despite everything, he hasn't actually kept pace with her the way he thought. Ouch. And we also get to see his gold sign for the first time, which sounds horrifying. I thought I was kind of prepared, but with his teeth glowing, that's just adds a whole other thing to it. I don't know if you guys have seen Attack the Block, but there are some aliens in Attack the Block that are like so black, with this like matte black fur that it feels like they're made of just pure void darkness, but their teeth glow with this like weird blue-green sort of light. And it's a very great character or creature design that's unnerving as fuck. And when it says his jaw unhinged like a snake's, tearing the red bandages away from his face. He bared a mouth full of glowing white fangs, his inheritance from the serpentine remnant that had nearly taken his sister's life. They twisted his face, reshaping his jaw, and any time he opened his mouth, he looked like a nightmare. Woo! Okay. That is just so... And he feels, too, that the tide of the whole attack is, like, turning against the Jai clan in general. It's really embarrassing. So he, like, speeds away, thinking to himself, well, I'm going to have to let Daishou kill her himself. I had been going to do this because it was just going to be fun for me. And now I'm realizing, not so much, actually. So, she tries to chase after him. It's just like, come back here, you, even though she's like pretty much down for the count, but she's got her pride. And we go back to Orthos and Lindon, and we find first we have the death of Gokran. He is just, honestly, I really do still feel kind of bad for him because he was so riddled with sadness over his son. The grief was so real, and I appreciated so much how vulnerable he was willing to be about it. But, you know, it was him or Lindon, and I picked Lindon, of course. So we get to see Orthos activate his ruler technique. And that shit is terrifying. They all go down in, like, because he's got backup. He's got some sand vipers with him. They all go down without even being able to scream. It's that fast. It's just horrifying. I said Orthos. Orthos activates it, but it's Lindon that actually does it, right? Because that is the thing that pushes him into Lowgold, is Orthos, like, infusing him with power. And Orthos says something to him about how, like, you wouldn't have been able to handle that if you're a Jade. So that's definitely, like, you're not anymore. And he's also sort of proud of Lindon here. He's really just like, now you get it. You see the reason that people are sort of into this path, or why people are terrified of it. Take your pick. So this is when Lindon gets to use the River Seed on Orthos. Now, I had been sort of like puzzled at the fact that this River Seed was so perfect for so many things regarding, you know, it hadn't seemed to have a particular purpose when it was small. It wasn't like focused. It didn't have a major for lack of a better word, a path. But it makes sense now finding out that Eithan uses pure Madra as his weapon, because he used Soulfire to bring her to life, kind of. She was already alive, but he added something. And the fact that his path is pure Madra, now it all makes sense why that is what she's able to do here. And I think that's really, really interesting. I just like that continuity, you know? So he is able to use the River Seed on Orthos, which does help him a little bit. Like, it's not the same kind of massive overhaul that it is whenever she does her magic on Lindon, because he's smaller, but it certainly assists in getting him to feel better. And then we go to Daishou and his fight with Eithan. I'm not going to go through the fight beat by beat because I don't have time, even though I really want to. And I just honestly, the idea that Daishou underestimated him so much because Eithan kept so much shit to himself about how he works makes Daishou's survival after, so that he can go and tell people, just all the more gut-wrenching. Eithan has been depending on the element of surprise. He ended the last chapter, in the last section, saying, "Thank you, now there will be no witnesses." That was what he meant. At the time, I was kind of like, what's this? And now it makes sense why he was just like, oh, I don't want anybody to know I can do this or what I can do, because then they'll be prepared. And I hate it for him that Daishou got away. I hate it. Especially because if Daishou is in a position to send a letter to the Emperor, that means that he was able to tell all kinds of people. This isn't like, you know, oh, he's still alive, but if you get him before it's too late, he'll still not get a chance to let everyone know the truth. It's too late. It's just too late. That's it. His secret's out. And I hate that for him. It's so satisfying to see somebody who is coming at him really thinking that they have the upper hand get completely slapped down. And I hated it. And I love Daishou uses this like insane weapon against him, against Eithan, that literally is meant to like take the tops off of mountains kind of thing, take walls down. And it just basically like kind of annoys Eithan. He gets like a black eye. This should have been enough to fell an army. And it's just not enough to take down Eithan. So the aura crashed into the scissors. I love the scissors. And instead of slicing them in half, split like a wave running against the rocks. Daishou was so committed to his attack that he could only watch in horror as the blade of silver light split around the scissors, dispersing, spraying immaterial aura light to either side of Eithan's face. A few more blonde hairs fell to the ground, but no more blood spilled. "Close one," he said between ragged breaths. "Tell me how." The black scissors met his throat, and the pain blasted away his enforcer technique. Time staggered back into focus. Eithan considered a moment. "I'll tell your remnant," he said, which is honestly such a boss line. If I ever get in a real fight with somebody and they ask me something, I'm just going to be like, "I'll tell your ghost. Don't worry about it." Excuse me, I just need a little sustenance there. So Lindon finds Eithan, and we find out later that the remnant that came out was not real. That was a remnant that was meant to fake his death, which is really something, you know, Jesus. But Lindon finds him later, and this is when Eithan gives him the assignment to go into the Jai clan tower and go and see Jai Long's sister. And we also get the reveal that Eithan has a marble from one of the gods. And I'm calling them gods. I remember that they're Abaddon is like, I think the name of like the Pantheon, if I'm not mistaken. But God's, I feel like, is adequate a name. He has one too. And he says something like, well, I don't know how valuable these like marbles are, but they might not be. They might just be something that you toss to servants, you know. But he doesn't say exactly what his encounter with this being was like. And Lindon doesn't explain from his end either. He says, we'll trade stories while we're not surrounded by hostile strangers. And this is when we get into the, sending him into the Jai clan territory. I was really bummed that we don't get the full story. And now that we see that Lindon gets arrested, I don't know how long it'll be until we do get that story. I'm dying to know. But I love getting these little mysteries set up. I love it. It's just like, I am a pretty patient person when it comes to this stuff, and giving me these little tidbits along the way is just like a deeply satisfying thing story-wise. I'm not somebody who needs everything explained out of the gate, you know? I don't like that, to be honest. So, and I'm also a person who, like, if you leave some things unexplained, I'm also fine with that. Like, sometimes that can feel lazy. But you know the difference when it's happening. You know the difference between somebody who's like, I don't really know. I didn't think it through. But it happens this way, whatever. And somebody being like, I thought it through. You don't really need to know. It doesn't matter to you. I needed to know. But I didn't find an elegant way to convey that information, and I'm not planning on doing it. Then there's just a different vibe with those two things. So there are some things in this that I really want to know. But if I didn't find out in the end, I wouldn't feel cheated or anything. I would just be like, well, what can you do? You know? So we go to Jai Chen and we see from her perspective for the first time. And we find out that she was considering killing herself because she thought maybe that would just take one of the cards that Daishou was trying to play against her brother out of his hand. But then she's like, man, he's an underlord. Even if I did, he'd still get what he wants. That's just the way that things go with these dudes. So she's been trying to heal herself, but it doesn't really do anything. The cycling that everyone encourages her to continue on with, thinking that it'll eventually lead to her, healing, doesn't seem to have an effect, but there's just not a lot else she can do. So that's all she does. And she's laying in bed, trying to cycle, and all of a sudden, the fucking door just, like, dissolves. The door to her room. And I really am wondering if that was truly necessary. But, okay, Lindon, I guess you wanted to make an entrance. It's not like him, though. I don't know why he decided to handle it this way. Like, if it was... Because we don't see from his perspective what kind of, like, protests they put up to letting him in, you know? A man stood in her room, and he had eyes like a death remnant. They were black all around, with rings of blood red shining in the center. With those eyes, he could be nothing but a monster come to kill her, and black fire still played around his fingers. And earlier, when Eithan told him to go and do this errand, it says, Jailong's sister is held captive by the Underlord to ensure his cooperation. In all the confusion, I'm afraid she's been left alone. Really? Lindon said, and black flame surged in him. Eithan snapped and pointed to him. That! When you are stopped by Jai clan members, show them the emblem, look them straight in the eyes, and do that. If they don't listen to you, then I'll come kill them. I'm sorry, look them in the eyes and do what? Lindon asked. He'd done nothing but cycle. You don't need a remnant to have a gold sign, Eithan said, and then lifted the sylvan river seed in his palm. So, Eithan, I think, caught a glimpse of that fucking eye thing and was just like, oh, shit, that is terrifying. Yes, go do that. Oh my God, they are going to piss their pants. And honestly, Lindon getting to look this scary is so great because we know how gentle and good-hearted he is. That's not to say he's any fucking pushover because we know that ain't true. But I love how intimidating this is, despite the fact that he is a total sweetheart cinnamon roll. Like, it's just so great. He deserves it. He deserves it so much. It's so nice to see good people get a thing. So he comes in and bows and it's like, hey, sorry about that. I thought that you'd be a little bit further on in the house, which I guess is what, like, him apologizing for busting the door down. But I don't know why he didn't just, I don't know what happened out there. And she looks at him and she's like, God, he just looks like a regular kid. Like, he's like my age. And I love how everybody mentions how tall he is and how broad-shouldered he is. That's been mentioned a few times. So that, in conjunction with the fact that he has this look to him now, he's getting to a point where he's really getting intimidating, you know? And she, as much as he looks like a normal person now, is not comforted. She doesn't calm herself. She's just looking at him, waiting for whatever that was to, like, show itself again. And she says something about his eyes, and he goes and looks in the mirror and is like, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. What about my eyes? Because he hasn't seen this yet. So he comes closer to her, and then he realizes something happened to her spirit because he gives a scan to see what her abilities are. And he pulls out the river seed. And he has to convince the river seed a little bit. And all of a sudden, she kind of, like, when she lays a hand, she slaps her. Jai Chen jumps a little bit because all of a sudden she feels this difference. Jai Chen slammed against the floor. Her consciousness dimmed and a sharp pain ran through her spirit. The foreign light faded as it tried to push through her broken channel like it expended something of itself to drill through. Her limbs started twitching, but she was afraid the blue light would stop. Go, she urged it. Break through. I need another one, the man said distantly, and there came a sound like muffled bells. I know you're tired, and I'm sorry. I'll feed you scales until you explode. And we have the Sylvan come back. They drilled through her channels, shaking her limbs until he had to hold her down, but they were doing it, drilling new connections through her Madra channels. Where they passed, the loops of light were connected again, healthy and free. The first light was soon extinguished, but when the second and third converged on the core, she blacked out. And then she wakes up, and she's able to breathe again for the first time without effort. She's able to speak more than a sentence without having to take a break. And I love the like, astonishment of how easy it is to just be again. And I love this whole moment. He says, I can leave you behind if you'll tell your brother what happened tonight. Can you do that? And she says, yes, I'll remember. I'll tell him. And all of a sudden she realizes her hair is a mess, her bedclothes are askew, and she's huddled on the floor. And she feels very self-conscious about it all of a sudden. And I was sort of like, oh, is she kind of like into him a little bit all of a sudden? Because this is like, you know, I don't know. And as he's about to leave, he turns and says, first he says, is your Madra alive? And that was at first a side effect of that remnant having attacked her. And it turned her Madra against her. But now, after this cleared, it seems to sort of work for her, but it does have its own sort of awareness, it seems. And then, right before he leaves again, he says, this may sound terrible, but have we met before? If I've forgotten you, I apologize, but you seem familiar to me. I don't know, because later on, when we are with Suriel again, she gets notified that Lindon has had a major deviation from what his fate was originally going to be. And it's the kind of deviation that has resulted in, like, projections on what could happen to him be straight up like inaccurate, which is kind of a warning sign to her that maybe shit's going wrong over there. And she notices Jai Chen when she's like scanning what's happened with him so far. And Jai Chen is somebody that he was going to have met either way. It's just that the circumstances of him meeting her here are different than what they were originally going to be. So I'm wondering if Lindon saw her in the vision of his life, and if she was the woman that he had been going to marry and settle down with. I love this, though, even if he didn't recognize her from that. There's a feeling that I've had when I have met people who've wound up being very important in my life, that I feel like I know them from somewhere, and I've never met them before, but it's like my spirit recognized them and knew. And that's what happened when I met my first husband. I met him and I was already engaged to somebody else. And I met him and he told a joke. It was really funny. I walked away and a voice in my head really loudly said, "You're going to marry him." And I stopped dead and was like, "Oh my God, I'm engaged. What the fuck, Natasha? Stop it." And I straight up avoided him for a while because that just freaked me out so bad. I had very rarely had any clear message like that before. Well, that message was right, because try as I might to avoid him initially, I was just drawn to him, and we wound up married. It just didn't matter. And that was something that happened. And when I began talking to Owen, something about him, it was just like I knew him already. So whether or not he saw her in that like vision of what his future would have been like, it still feels like there's something between the two of them, and I'm guessing it's going to wind up being romantic. Now, I am somebody who is pretty anti-romance in my stories. I've talked about this already because it's often done pretty badly. But I'm really like willing to be open-minded about this, because the author hasn't like rested the whole narrative on a romance, which is something that I feel often happens. And that's part of why I get irritated, is that a lot of like the plot of a book will be driven by stupid decisions people make because they're in love, and I don't care. So I think that's not going to happen here. At least I hope not. And I trust this author by now to like be smart about it. So we'll just see how that goes. So he tells her, "If I've done anything wrong or if you need her help again, you can find me at the Aurelius family. I'm sorry for disturbing your night." So he leaves with his giant turtle that follows her out. And the Jai clan shuts what's left of her door after he goes. And she's left sitting there going like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this." And Jai Long comes in and thinks they hurt her and is really ready to fucking throw down. And he says, "Tell me what happened," as he's coming at her, and she's able to push him away. And the shock of her being able to push him away is just, he like just stops dead and is like, "Oh my God, what happened?" And he scans her, and then it says she told him, and we cut before we ever get to see what his reaction to any of this is. So then we go to fucking Daishou finding out that he's still alive. What the fuck? And then we go to Suriel and her like reflecting on how time works, and also thinking about how Azrael works. Now, this is a weird thing. Iterations were like fruits, and the way was the vine. So long as the worlds were healthy and connected to the way, they enjoyed luxuries like causality and existence, which I just love the way that's luxuries. Let's see, I'm trying to find the spot. I think I jumped ahead too much here. Whenever a corrupted world, like the Limit and Harrow, broke into fragments, those pieces still contained some of their corruption. Corrupted fragments were like parasites, drifting up and down the vine looking for healthy fruits to infest. When that world was corrupted, it broke into diseased fragments as well, and the corruption spread exponentially. As a world's population shriveled, that strained its connection to the way, which invited infection. A few thousand years ago, the Abaddon could only care for 250 iterations. That was as far as they could stretch their forces because they had to protect each world from the chaos-tainted fragments that hunted the edges of the way. When Azrael appeared, someone who could dispose of a corrupted world without breaking it into toxic pieces, the Abaddon went through a period of explosive growth. They stitched healthy fragments together into new iterations, spinning out into new universes that they could protect. Without infected world fragments flying around, they could expand without worry. And they did. Suriel and her predecessor had known the danger of putting the weight of their entire system on a single component, Azrael, but they were saving lives. Every iteration under Abaddon protection was another reality not left to the ravages of chaos or the Vroshir. Is that the first time, Andy, that we hear the word the Vroshir? Is that something... Andy says, yeah, first time. That is... I'm thinking of them as like sort of agents of chaos, but, you know, we'll see. Yeah, I just find this really, really interesting that it turns out Azrael's like hugely important in a way that like it looked like being beneficial, but actually sort of became this huge weight that he kind of resented after a while. And I just like understand how that could be something that you get sick of everything depending on you. And when she checks in with her presence is like, BT dubs, Azrael could easily fake his death. There's almost nobody that we know of that could come up against him and actually take him by surprise. He hasn't wanted this job for a minute now. So finding a way out wouldn't have been that hard for him. And that seems to be what she finally comes to believe is the case. She seems to be pretty strongly like of the opinion that this has been faked. And it says information requested, judge killers, beginning report. Our information on Vroshir's worlds is limited, so the capabilities of the Vroshir themselves are largely unknown. Only a handful are projected to possess combat power that rivals a judge. The Silver Lords gather armies from the worlds they conquer. Between them they may have found a combination of specialists and assassins capable of catching Azrael unaware. The Horseman rides from world to world, gathering energy systems and replicating their effects. He's demonstrated capabilities from at least 13 dead worlds, and under certain conditions he could have bypassed Azrael's protection. The Mad King hosts an entity that has killed judges before, but the court would have been notified if he had left his iteration. If he had found a way to cross the way without alerting sector control, then he represents a Class 1 threat. The Angler has stolen 6 weapons from Abaddon iterations, and she remains at large. Her confirmed arsenal holds nothing that could threaten the Reaper, but she certainly possesses other weapons beyond the knowledge of the court. Fiends of Chaos. True fiends defy classification by nature, and the only individuals known capable of threatening judges remain imprisoned in Asylum, a capital A. No fiend has ever demonstrated the ability to pass into existence without disturbing the way, and the Spider Division has reported no such violation near Harrow or Limit prior to Limit's expiration. If a fiend capable of doing battle with Azrael has passed through the way undetected, current quarantine levels are insufficient. Contact the other judges to prepare for system collapse. Don't love that. And then we get Abaddon. For security reasons, each judge's combat potential is not available for access. However, inferences can be made from publicly available data. Raziel, the wolf, has expressed a personal grudge against Azrael since the creation of the Reaper's office. She was capable of depopulating an iteration before her first conscious contact with the Way, and Raziel's sword was designed for the execution of judges and Class 1 threats. The Wolf Division contains many destructive powers that are not public record, and Azrael may have underestimated them. Machiel, the Hound, Judge of Fate, the only individual whose prediction skills rival Azrael's. In combat power alone, he was once considered capable of assuming the role of Raziel, though he declined the mantle. He has attempted to replace Osriel many times, fought to deny Osriel the rank of judge, and led the opposition to all Osriel's proposed modifications to the Eladari Pact. There's so much info packed in here, guys. Unofficial reports suggest he has been developing his own scythe. Due to personal biases involved, an encounter between Machiel and Osriel is virtually guaranteed to end in conflict. So, ton of information there. Very little of it actually really explained, but that's fine. Report complete. Suriel does her little sort of check on Lindon, just out of curiosity, the way that she's done. And everything seems to be on target as far as like what could have been expected based on the way that fate adjusts itself. And then she comes up against him meeting the Aurelius family. And this is something that hadn't come up in any of the projections of what could happen to him. This is nothing like anything she saw. And this is when she like looks into the iteration, her presence tells her significant deviations detected. Future activity will have a low degree of accuracy. And she's looking around like, what the fuck? Because she is supposed to be able to affect change to a degree, but she can't do anything that would cause something to go so flatly off base that it could potentially affect the fate of that whole iteration, which is what I think she's worried is happening here. And so she thinks that maybe somehow, without meaning to, she violated some of the restrictions over what she was supposed to be able to do, the changes she was supposed to be able to have affected. And she is heading down to Cradle in order to take a look at this, when all of a sudden an eyeball pops up in front of her, and it's Machiel's presence, and it tells her, please travel to the following coordinates. Judge designation 001 Machiel requests a meeting. And we leave her to go over to the Skysworn, who are apparently like low-key police, it seems. Renfei, I don't know if that's how you say her name. I haven't listened to the audiobook for this part. I was just reading this part myself. And she had been, when she gets into Skysworn, her mentor said something about how she'd find out what she was really made of when she finally came up against somebody who was a Blackflame. Because her mentor seemed to take it for granted that the Black Flames would return eventually. And that had never been an issue to worry about until now. They all sense the return of this path. And at first, they think it's a person. Then they go to thinking it's a Black Flame weapon of some kind. Then they go back to thinking it's a person once they spot Lindon practicing. And it's great because she is with this guy named Bairu. And they are trying to track where it's coming from. And there hasn't been enough of it for them to really follow it to its source. They had planned to confront both Underlords once they had evidence of the weapon's existence, but thus far they'd found none, and the Aurelius Patriarch had fled the city before the Skysworn arrived. That suggested a guilty conscience to Renfei, but she needed more than suspicions to pursue claims against a lord. So all of a sudden there's this blast of fucking Black Flame aura, and they're like, oops, there it is. And they assume it's somebody testing the weapon. And they head towards it. They're looking around. They can't find it. They go into the trial facility, and they spot Fisher Gesha running around, and then they see this young kid. I love reading the descriptions of what Lindon looks like from other people's perspectives. He was tall and looked stern despite his age, and a very careful scan of his spirit didn't pick up anything of his Madra. She couldn't check him more thoroughly without alerting him to their presence, but he must be very skilled to have veiled his spirit from even a cursory scan. His Madra almost felt pure, which was a testament to the power of his veil. I love that, and I guess that's probably how Eithan's been operating too, is that people all just thought it was a veil. They just never realized that it was pure. So Bairu is like, is that the weapon? Like, and she shakes her head and says, well, wait until they draw it again. It shouldn't be two. And then all of a sudden, his spirit changes. His eyes turn black. And all of a sudden, the fucking aura goes up again. And they're both like, oh my fucking God, who did this? And they come down in front of him and basically treat him like he's a bomb about to go off. And she's just not understanding how a second ago his aura was like, she couldn't read it at all. And now he's a fucking mass of this fucking aura. And then after he blasts this aura, all of a sudden he sits down and he's just cycling again and he's fine. And she's looking at him. She's just like, how the fuck is he able to, like, first of all, his core should be dry because he's not a very strong and he's only a Lowgold. Second of all, he should collapse after he does that. And yet, here he is just sitting down and cycling like it's no bigs. I don't understand how this is happening. Visibly healing right in front of her face. And Bairu says, someone is making a monster. And I was just like, oh my God, what does that mean? Like, I got real worried for a second that maybe the thing that we saw attacking Cradle turns out to be, like, Lindon. That's not possible, right? Lindon can't just grow into a giant kaiju. I don't know. So they land. Renfri looks at his normal, ordinary eyes and thinks that, quote, a clever deception, which is interesting. Like, it's not that he can just go in and out like that's a gold sign. She really thinks that they're just camouflaging what he really looks like. And when they ask him what his rank is and stuff, and he doesn't really know how to answer, they think that's just him being coy. They just don't buy that anybody could be this clueless. And they shackled his spirit, reducing his power. He was more cooperative than most of Renfi's prisoners, though he did repeatedly insist that they tell his family what happened to him. He may as well not have bothered. The Aurelius family never needed to be informed about anything. Renfei's only report would go straight to the Emperor. The Black Flames had returned. So then we go to the Emperor. And speaking of, like, the Aurelius family never needed to be notified of anything, apparently they do, because he didn't know that Daishou was still alive. Sucks to suck. So we see the Emperor, and he's walking through his ridiculous, ostentatious home, reflecting on the fact that at one time he had been a servant here. He had scrubbed the floors. And as he's heading into the house, all of a sudden he realizes that there is nobody around. There should be staff, there should be guards, there should be servants, there should be family, not a soul. And when he comes in and realizes that it's just Eithan, and that Eithan just did some messing with the schedule to let everybody think that it was somebody else's shift so that nobody turned up, he gets so agitated. And he tries to be like, we are not pleased at the disrespect you've shown. Our office is nothing. No one's listening, Eithan assured him, eating another grape. So as soon as he says that, Naru's whole, like, vibe changes. He drops the, first of all, he gets very agitated at the no one's listening and thinks maybe something's happened to his family. And Eithan has to be like, dude, no, they're all just out shopping. I didn't do anything to anybody. But then he calms down and calls him by his first name and is just like, man, warn me. You can't do this, dude. What are you doing? And this is when, let's see, where is it? Oh, yeah. He says, as long as you don't need them to have an underlord, he's talking about the Jai clan. He initiated an open attack against me. I was forced to take out the broom. And he says, well, if you had to fight him, you should have killed him. And Eithan just nearly faints with shock. she's like, I did kill him. The Emperor raised both eyebrows. I have a dream tablet from him that arrived yesterday, demanding I punish you for your insolent actions in Serpent's Grave and requesting imperial assistance in establishing his authority over the city. Am I to understand that I just received accurate information before the Aurelia's Underlord? Let me just breathe it in. This is a good day. Naruhuan, I like you. You're a fun guy. And Eithan is just really worked up here. It's just like, God damn it, I killed him. I know I killed him. I've never made a fucking mistake like this before. I've never needed to like completely rethink everything because I fucked up that bad. Now my whole plan needs to change. And the Emperor's like, oh, you mean the fucking plan where you bring back Blackflame? And Eithan's like, oh, no, not that. And he's like, dude, don't wave that shit off. This is very serious. What are you doing? Eithan says, teaching someone the path is not illegal. Neither is hanging yourself, but that doesn't make it wise. He's going to be isolated, both for his own safety and to stop him from causing a panic, Eithan. That does bring us around to the reason I'm here. I have a request. The Skysworn already have him in custody. I can't let a Blackflame go, Eithan. He'll cause a riot. Let him go? No, not at all. His smile returned. I want you to make sure he still has to fight. And that's the last line of the book. So the next book, we're going to have Lindon in prison. And I'm worried about him. I really am. He's a good boy. He doesn't deserve this. Aw, what a poor sweet bun. So, yeah, this was really fun to read. I am super curious about all of the details about the Abaddon and the... What is the name of the other group there? The Vroshir. Thank you, Andy. I was trying to find it back here, but I couldn't do it. Yeah, I'm very curious about that. I like how we're getting just piecemeal info, like need to know, as we go along. And I'm just excited. We're starting Skysworn on Friday. Here it comes. Thank you very much, Andy, for commissioning all of these. I'm so glad I get to start the next one right away. I hope you guys are all enjoying listening, and I will be seeing you again with a new episode on a Friday. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.